Good evening, my dear listener. Thank you for visiting my channel. I'm very glad to see you here. Today, we're about to embark on an extraordinary journey through time and imagination into the world of the great Leonardo da Vinci. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe. There's plenty more amazing content ahead. Also, drop a comment telling me which country you're staying up in tonight. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Well then, get comfortable. Close your eyes. We're starting. Imagine a man born decades before the discovery of America, in an era when books were copied by hand, and people with scientific ideas could be burned at the stake. And yet, in that time, among the hills of Tuscany, he appears, a boy who would soon draw helicopters, design submarines, explore the workings of the human heart, and propose engineering solutions that still astonish us today. Leonardo da Vinci, a name known even to those who know almost nothing about history. Some recall his Mona Lisa with the enigmatic smile. Others have heard of The Last Supper. But few realize that behind the painter's brush hid a mind that outran its era by centuries. Leonardo became an artist, and more. He was a brilliant observer, inventor, anatomist, philosopher, theater director, botanist, architect, and engineer. The list could go on endlessly, because Leonardo himself placed no limits on his mind. He sketched flying machines that seemed copied from the future, studied the function of heart valves, calculated bridges, designed the ideal city, and all this centuries before science caught up with those same ideas. He encrypted his thoughts, as if speaking to future generations, not out of fear, but because his thoughts were too personal, too profound, and perhaps too dangerous for his time. Why has a man who left many of his paintings and treatises unfinished become the ultimate symbol of genius? What drove him? Glory, curiosity, faith, loneliness? Why, more than 500 years later, do we keep returning to him, searching for answers about ourselves? This story is not merely about a great man. It is an attempt to peer into the very essence of human genius. We will go where there are no borders between art and science, between the spiritual and the material, between the possible and the impossible. We will dive into the world of Leonardo da Vinci, not as a museum exhibit, but as a living, pulsing reality. Into his world, where science began with curiosity, and art with a thirst for understanding. Are you ready for a journey through time and mind? Then, let us begin. Man is the true image of the world. Leonardo da Vinci. To try and describe Leonardo da Vinci is nearly an impossible task. He was an artist, but also an anatomist, engineer, musician, botanist, mathematician, and philosopher. For him, there were no boundaries between science and art. He saw hidden connections where others saw only form. Painting is a science, and one more noble than others, for it is born from the depths of nature. He studied not only form, but principle, from the shape of a leaf or a face to the flight of birds and the structure of the heart. His notebooks are a treasure trove of observations, sketches, and reflections where painting, engineering, and medicine are interwoven into a single whole. Learn first the science, and then the art. Science is the commander of art. Leonardo was a true pioneer, from the portrait of the Mona Lisa to the prototype of the helicopter, from anatomical sketches to blueprints of future cities. He wrote in mirror script, as if encoding thoughts that were often filled with questions and a relentless search for understanding. Those who fall in love with practice without science are like a sailor without a rudder or compass. He understood that to truly know the world, one must combine logic and intuition, study and sensation. Leonardo did not rush. He often postponed tasks, but it was precisely this unhurriedness that allowed him to reach the essence of things. Blessed is the student who surpasses his teacher. Leonardo surpassed them all and became a symbol of a holistic view of the world, in which science and art are two sides of the same coin. In this story, we won't just recount his achievements. We will try to understand how he thought. To understand Leonardo is to learn how to see the world anew. On a spring morning, April 15th, 1452, in a small Tuscan village named Vinci, an event occurred that would, centuries later, alter the course of art, science, and human thought. A boy was born, Leonardo. But his birth was not simple. He came into the world out of wedlock, the son of the local notary, Piero da Vinci, and a young peasant woman, Caterina. At the time, being an illegitimate child meant being born in the shadows, without inheritance rights, without privileges. But Leonardo's fate would be different. Though he officially had no right to bear his father's surname, Piero acknowledged the boy and cared for him. This act opened unusual doors for Leonardo. He gained access to knowledge, connections, and crafts through his father, yet remained free from the rigid constraints of noble status. Piero da Vinci was an educated and respected man, used to thinking beyond convention. His notary profession demanded precision, attention to detail, and insight into human affairs. Caterina was a simple peasant woman who gave Leonardo tenderness, a love for the land, and a deep bond with nature. Though she later married another man, and Leonardo was raised primarily by his father, the connection to both parents would shape the mind of a future genius. Leonardo's family embodied a fusion of two worlds, urban intellect and rural simplicity. It was within this blend that a unique perspective began to form, one that could see both the fine lines on paper and the vastness of the forest and fields. Piero did not restrict his son's curiosity. On the contrary, he encouraged it, allowing Leonardo to observe, to learn from craftsmen and artists, to become acquainted with the work of Florence's greatest masters. Despite lacking formal education, the boy was richly nourished in both mind and soul. In the quiet, distant village of Vinci, surrounded by hills, vineyards, and olive groves, Leonardo first learned how to listen to and understand the world. Every sound, every movement, every shadow told him a story. He loved wandering through the meadows, studying insects, watching how light shimmered on water. To him, nature was an endless book, the book of life, and he was its devoted reader. Nature became his teacher, muse, and source of inspiration. He watched birds soar into the sky, the wind rustle leaves, water trickle across stone. Not a single detail escaped his attention. The shape of a cloud, the curve of a branch, the texture of tree bark. Everything became an object of study and wonder. Nature never hurries, yet everything is accomplished. It seemed that young Leonardo thought just that. He understood that within this unhurried harmony lay the laws of motion, light, and life. These early observations would later form the foundation of his scientific and artistic achievements. Even in childhood, his extraordinary talent for drawing and his drive to understand the world began to emerge. Leonardo didn't just replicate what he saw. He tried to look behind the curtain of nature and objects. His early sketches, insects, flowers, birds, folds of fabric, amazed with their accuracy and vitality. It is known that as a boy, he crafted small models and mechanisms, mimicking the movement of birds and fish, trying to understand how they flew and swam. His questions were relentless. Why? How? What if? In these early years, he also showed an unusual ability to observe people, their movements, expressions, gestures. This would later make him a master portraitist, capable of creating figures infused with life. His teachers and mentors were astonished by his talent and diligence. But above all, Leonardo was marked by a hunger for knowledge and an ability to see what others overlooked. He did not study from textbooks. He studied the world directly, with his eyes, his hands, and his heart. When young Leonardo moved from the quiet Tuscan village of Vinci to the bustling, vibrant city of Florence, his destiny began to change rapidly. In 1466, at the age of 14, he became an apprentice to Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the most respected painters and sculptors of the Florentine Republic. Verrocchio's workshop was a true forge of talent, where the traditions of Gothic art merged with the bold innovations of the Renaissance. Here, Leonardo received his first systematic lessons in painting techniques, perspective, anatomy, and the use of color and light. Verrocchio did not just train craftsmen. He taught his students to see the world differently, to capture nature in art with both precision and feeling. Historians believe that it was in Verrocchio's studio that Leonardo began to understand that painting was not merely copying forms, but a study of light and shadow, motion and emotion. Verrocchio's meticulous attention to detail and his drive to reveal the inner world of his subjects greatly influenced Leonardo's development as an artist. Interestingly, it was also in this studio that Leonardo first encountered the limitations of available materials and began experimenting on his own with techniques and media. His tireless spirit of inquiry began to take shape here. Leonardo's first notable contribution came with the painting The Baptism of Christ, a collaborative work produced in Verrocchio's studio. This masterpiece, now housed in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, clearly shows the hand of the young apprentice. It was Leonardo who painted the angel figure, rendered with astonishing realism and delicacy, making viewers feel the softness of the flesh and the flutter of wings. This piece served as an unofficial exam for the young artist, showcasing his technical skills and individual flair. Within the harmony of color and light, one can already detect the early signs of his distinctive style, a fusion of precision and poetry, science and emotion. After the baptism of Christ, Leonardo continued working on minor commissions, gaining experience and experimenting with portraiture and landscape. Even in these early works, his drive to move beyond flat surfaces toward depth and dimensionality was evident. But Florence, at that time, was not only a center of art. It was a hub of scientific thought and engineering innovation. Leonardo absorbed everything around him like a sponge. Even as a teenager, he began drawing his first mechanical designs, bridges, lifting devices, and military equipment. He studied books on mechanics and engineering, tinkered with various constructions, and even built rudimentary machines. His unique vision of the interplay between art and science was already forming. The understanding that movement and structure were fundamental not only to engineering, but also to painting. Even more important were his early attempts to study the human body. Leonardo was eager to understand how muscles, bones, and organs worked. Despite the church's strict prohibition on dissections, he secretly studied anatomy, dissected animals, and made drawings that continue to astonish for their precision and insight. These investigations allowed him not only to create more lifelike images, but also to lay the groundwork for the future of anatomical science. The most significant development during this period was the emergence of what would later become Leonardo's signature, the combination of artistic genius with scientific rigor. He didn't merely draw, he analyzed, measured, studied, and transcribed the laws of nature using the language of brush and pencil. His notebooks are filled with hundreds of pages of sketches, diagrams, and notes, recording observations, experiments, and hypotheses. It is this fusion of art and science that gives his work its enduring vitality. Hints of his famed sfumato technique began to appear, the soft blending of tones that creates a mist-like effect and a sense of depth. At this time, he also began experimenting with light and shadow, attempting to capture the subtlest nuances of the human face and of nature. Even in his youth, Leonardo understood that a painter is not merely a craftsman, but a researcher, someone who uses the brush to unveil the world's secrets. In 1482, Leonardo da Vinci moved to Milan, a thriving city-state ruled by Ludovico Sforza, nicknamed the Silent One. This man was not only a military leader, but also a patron of the arts, eager to surround himself with the greatest minds and masters of the era. Leonardo presented Sforza with his resume, written in refined Italian, detailing his skills in engineering, painting, and military affairs. The brilliant polymath was granted a position as court artist, engineer, and architect. This was a period of intense creativity and research. The court provided Leonardo not only with resources and materials, but also with inspiration. He was entrusted with projects of various scales, from decorating palaces to creating the most complex military machines. Leonardo understood that military technology was a crucial field of innovation during the constant wars between Italian principalities. He created numerous drawings and models of weapons that were centuries ahead of their time. His famous project, the first ever tank in history, featured a round armored body armed with cannons placed around its circumference. Although the machine was never built, his ideas clearly demonstrated how deeply Leonardo understood the principles of movement, stability, and firepower. He also designed catapults, ballistae, fortifications with clever passages and traps. His projects took into account not only physics, but also the psychology of the enemy, how to confuse, mislead, and suppress them. His engineering sketches included unusual ideas such as underground tunnels for sieges and mechanisms for blowing up walls. Leonardo saw war not only as cruelty, but also as a complex problem of mechanics and strategy. However, Leonardo's genius was not limited to military technology. His notebooks are full of sketches of machines and devices that look like futuristic inventions, nearly 5 centuries ahead of their time. He worked on hydraulic systems, developing water pumps and canals, studying the movement of water and its force, aiming to use it in industry and agriculture. One of his most astonishing projects was the first drawings of helicopter prototypes, a device with a screw rotor, which he called the aerial screw. Despite the technical limitations of the era, the idea of flying captured his imagination. He also invented the parachute, a device capable of slowing a person's fall from a height. His parachute sketches were simple but ingenious, and modern experiments confirm they could actually work. Leonardo never separated art and science. Every machine, every mechanism was born from a deep understanding of the laws of nature and a desire to improve the world. One of Leonardo's most significant and mysterious creations was the painting The Last Supper, a fresco created between 1495 and 1498 for the refectory of the Santa Maria delle Grazie monastery in Milan. It is not just a painting. It is a living narrative encrypted in faces, gestures, and composition. Leonardo brilliantly captured the moment when Jesus Christ speaks of betrayal, and the apostles' reactions: shock, horror, disbelief. Each character is a distinct personality, full of emotions conveyed with astonishing precision. The composition is arranged so that the viewer's gaze follows the direction of the figure's eyes, focusing on the central figure. Leonardo used perspective, light, and shadow to create spatial depth and tension in the moment. For the first time in the history of painting, The Last Supper became a symbol not only of a religious story, but also of the study of human psychology. Researchers still debate the hidden symbols and codes that the artist may have embedded, making the painting the subject of many mysteries and legends. Besides art and technology, Leonardo was engaged in urban planning, the science of city space. In an era marked by plague and social crises, he contemplated what an ideal city of the future should be like. His notebooks contain projects imagining cities with separate levels for pedestrians and transport, a well-thought-out system of canals for drainage and hygiene improvement, wide streets and green zones. He saw the city as a living organism where everything must work in harmony: architecture, nature, engineering, and human life. These ideas were far ahead of their time. They only found reflection centuries later in the plans of modern megacities. Leonardo dreamed that his ideal city would become a place where art, science, and technology serve humanity, not destruction. Leonardo da Vinci was not only a remarkable artist and inventor, but also one of the first great anatomists in human history. He created more than 240 detailed anatomical drawings that continue to impress with their accuracy and depth. At a time when dissections were strictly forbidden by the Church, Leonardo found ways to conduct secret anatomical studies. He examined muscles, bones, tendons, organs, and even the tiniest blood vessels. His drawings were not merely schematic sketches, but artistic, scientific masterpieces combining beauty and precision. Leonardo was not content with superficial knowledge. He measured muscle lengths, studied their shapes and connections, and recorded details unnoticed by other scholars. His works were centuries ahead of their time and laid the foundations of modern anatomy. Leonardo paid special attention to the study of the most important organs, the brain and the heart. He meticulously examined the brain's structure, identifying its parts and attempting to understand how it controls thought and feelings. His drawings of the brain are remarkably precise, especially given the absence of modern technology. The heart and blood vessels were a particular object of Leonardo's fascination. He studied blood circulation, noting the function of valves and blood flow mechanisms. In fact, he anticipated William Harvey's discoveries by several centuries. His concepts included diagrams of the heart functioning as a mechanical pump, an image that later became classical in physiology. Leonardo saw the body as a complex mechanism, where every element obeys a common rhythm and motion. Leonardo's philosophical thinking also impresses with its depth. He admired the idea that man is a microcosm reflecting the entire world, the macrocosm. In his view, by studying the nature of the human body and life, one could understand the laws of the universe. This thinking is reflected in his famous drawing, Vitruvian Man, where the human body is inscribed within a circle and a square, symbols of harmony and ideal proportions. Leonardo believed that the proportions of the human body are the key to understanding the proportions of nature. He sought unity between heaven and earth, between the movement of planets and the movement of life within the human body. For Leonardo, there were no boundaries between science and philosophy. Everything was part of a unified whole. Leonardo was not a conventional thinker. His thinking was systemic and complex. He saw connections between very different phenomena, from the movement of water to the structure of the human eye. His mind worked like a multi-dimensional network, where each idea gave rise to a new one. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he did not consider phenomena separately, but tried to understand them in their interrelations. For example, studying the anatomy of the eye, he did not just record its structure, but sought how light and vision are connected with perception and emotions. This way of thinking allowed him to create inventions and theories that did not fit the classical logic of his era. Leonardo was a pioneer, not only in science, but also in the very way of thinking. For Leonardo, art and science were two sides of the same process of cognition. He wrote, "Drawing is the language of genius." For him, drawing was not only a technique of creating images, but also a tool of research. In every stroke, he sought not only to capture the external appearance, but to grasp the internal structure and essence of the object. This explains the incredible accuracy of his anatomical and scientific drawings. His paintings are full of life, movement, light, and shadow, because he approached them from the perspective of a scientist, not just an artist. He believed that through art, one could understand the laws of nature and the mysteries of the universe. A special mystery is his famous notebooks and journals. Leonardo wrote in mirror script, from right to left, creating a sense of secrecy and closure. Perhaps this was a form of protection against forgery and spies, or maybe a habit that helped him think faster. His notebooks contained thousands of pages filled with drawings, notes, formulas, and ideas. A kind of archive of genius. They include everything from detailed studies of mussels and plants to projects of flying machines and cities of the future. Many entries remain mysterious to this day, and scholars debate the meanings and interpretations of some fragments. His notebooks are a living testament to the continuous process of cognition, searching, errors, and discoveries. At the beginning of 16th century, when Leonardo da Vinci had already surpassed all expectations of his time, he received an offer that became the pinnacle of his long and multifaceted life. In 1516, King Francis I personally invited the master to relocate to France. This invitation was not merely a gesture of respect. It was a recognition of a greatness unmatched anywhere in Europe. Francis's size saw in Leonardo not only a talented artist, but also a brilliant engineer, architect, and thinker who could make a tremendous contribution to the kingdom's development. Leonardo was granted the title Premier Painter and Engineer and Architect to the king, effectively making him the king's chief advisor on art and science matters. The move to France opened a new chapter in Leonardo's life. In the Château de Clos-Lucé, one of the most luxurious residences of the time, he found peace and the opportunity to continue his research. Many consider this period his golden autumn, a time of profound creativity when wisdom and experience merged in amazing harmony. Francis III often visited Leonardo, valuing not only his talents, but also his friendly company. Legend has it that the king said, "I am not afraid of meeting my enemies, but I fear missing my meetings with Leonardo." This highlights how highly the great master was regarded at the French court. Even nearing the age of 70, Leonardo continued to amaze the world with his inventions and plans. One of the most memorable projects of this period was the mechanical lion. This remarkable mechanism, created at the king's request, could move on its own, and when opening its metal chest, displayed bouquets of flowers, symbols of friendship and peace. This lion was not just a toy. It showcased Leonardo's finest engineering skills and his ability to merge mechanics with aesthetics. According to contemporaries, the device thrilled everyone who saw it in action and became a symbol of the grandeur of the French court. Besides that, Leonardo worked on architectural projects, reflecting his dream of the ideal city, a harmonious union of beauty, functionality, and engineering innovation. He designed palace plans featuring well-thought-out water supply and canal systems, which were intended to improve not only comfort, but also the city's safety. Special attention was given to canal and irrigation system projects. Leonardo understood that water is the source of life and power, and proper management could transform any region. These ideas were centuries ahead of their time, and many modern hydraulic engineering systems are based on principles he laid down. The flying machines he sketched in his last notebooks remain objects of admiration and mystery. Leonardo continued working on concepts for wings, parachutes, and even underwater breathing devices, proving that his dreams extended far beyond the ordinary. May 2nd, 1519, marked the day when the great genius left this world. Leonardo died at the Château de Clos, surrounded by his closest students and friends. Despite his advanced age and physical ailments, in his final moments, he remained clear-minded and full of spirit. Before his death, he entrusted his invaluable manuscripts, records, sketches, and plans to those he trusted. He hoped that his knowledge would not perish with him, but be continued and expanded by future generations. Unfortunately, much of his work remained hidden or even lost for a long time. But over time, the secrets underpinning many modern scientific and engineering achievements were revealed. Leonardo left no direct disciples who could systematize and carry on his work. But his influence is felt in many fields of art and science to this day. Countless individuals worldwide have drawn inspiration from his journals to create masterpieces and breakthroughs. And one of the most touching legends surrounding Leonardo's final days tells that King Francis I was personally present at his death and held him in his arms. Although historians debate the authenticity of this episode, it perfectly illustrates how deeply the great master was valued and respected. According to the legend, the king was not only nearby at Leonardo's passing, but also mourned the loss of a friend and teacher. The great artist leaves us, but his light will shine for centuries, contemporaries said. This image is a symbol not only of Leonardo's greatness, but also of the human closeness that united two great men from different worlds, the genius of the Renaissance and the enlightened monarch. Leonardo da Vinci was not merely an artist and inventor. He was a revolutionary thinker in the realm of knowledge. His unique method consisted of three key elements: keen observation, meticulous experimentation, and synthesis of knowledge. He said, "Observation is the mother of all knowledge." In his notebooks, Leonardo constantly emphasized that true understanding of the world is impossible without attentive and thorough study of nature. He would spend hours studying the movement of water, the behavior of light, and the structure of the human body, everything that could provide answers to the most complex questions. Experimentation for him was not a futile attempt. It was a method of testing hypotheses, searching for new paths and solutions. In his work, he combined an artistic eye with scientific precision. The mind is clay that can be molded through experience. Finally, synthesis, the unification of disparate knowledge into a single system. Leonardo connected mathematics, philosophy, art, anatomy, and engineering in his research, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. He wrote, "Nature does not joke, and her secrets are hidden in connections that man has yet to learn to see." Leonardo possessed a profoundly philosophical view of the world and mankind's place within it. In his writings, he reflected on nature as a living organism, where everything is interconnected. Nature is a great artist. Her hand moves the world, and we are but shadows of her creations. He saw man not merely as a body, but as a part of the cosmos. Man is a microcosm, a reflection of all that exists. This sense of macrocosm and microcosm was central to Leonardo's understanding of life. Regarding God and religion, he expressed ideas that were progressive for his time. God is not a distant ruler, but a living force that permeates all around. His reflections bordered on pantheism, but without dogma. He believed in reason open to the mysteries of the universe. Living and creating in an era when the Inquisition strictly controlled thoughts and beliefs was a challenge. Leonardo, a free-thinking man, walked a fine line between conformism and revolution in science and art. He avoided direct confrontation with the church, but his ideas often contradicted established dogmas. For example, his anatomical studies based on dissections shocked contemporaries, since the human body was considered sacred and its study taboo. Nevertheless, Leonardo was unwavering. Fear is the worst enemy of knowledge. His freedom of thought and pursuit of truth became an inspiration for many generations of scientists and artists, making him a symbol of the fight for reason and progress. One of the mysteries of Leonardo's life is his habit of leaving many projects unfinished. Why did the great master abandon paintings, inventions, and plans? The reason lay in his striving for perfection and his inability to stop until he saw the ideal result. Leonardo said, "I never do today what I can do tomorrow, if I do not reach the highest measure today." But often the ideal he set was so high that achieving it proved impossible. This perfectionism spawned an eternal movement forward. He constantly sought new approaches and ideas, unwilling to settle for half measures. Many modern scholars call this genius procrastination, but within it lies a quest for eternal evolution of thought and art. For Leonardo da Vinci, art and science were inseparably linked. He believed that painting is poetry frozen in space, and scientific research is its profound content. In his view, the artist is simultaneously a scientist, philosopher, and engineer. He wrote, "To understand nature, one must be able to draw its forms, and to draw, one must understand its laws." This synergy allowed him to create paintings with unprecedented accuracy and depth, as well as design machines centuries ahead of their time. Leonardo laid the foundation for modern interdisciplinarity, proving that creativity and logic, emotion and reason are a unified whole. Leonardo da Vinci died more than 500 years ago, but his genius continues to live on in laboratories, lecture halls, and workshops all around the world. His anatomical studies are recognized as some of the most accurate in history before the advent of modern imaging. He dissected and studied the bodies of over 30 people, from infants to the elderly, describing muscles, bones, organs, vascular, and nervous systems with astonishing precision. In his anatomical notebook, Leonardo detailed the workings of the heart valves, long before 19th century scientists proved it scientifically. He was the first to depict an embryo in the womb, provided drawings of the skeleton in motion, and proposed principles of vision and hearing. His sketches of the pelvis and spine are still used in medicine as examples of extremely precise naturalistic drawings. In engineering, he created blueprints for a multi-barreled cannon, a submarine, a diving suit, a helical air screw, a precursor to the helicopter, and a self-propelled cart, a forerunner of the automobile. His bridge designs were notable not only for their stability, but also for their elegance. One such model, a drawbridge designed for the Army, was tested in the 21st century and recognized as functional. Regarding robotics, his mechanical knight, created around 1495, could move its arms, turn its head, and bend its legs. This was a true precursor of cybernetics. Today, it is considered the first Android project in history, reconstructed in 2002 by Mario Today, and functioning according to Leonardo's calculations. Leonardo da Vinci became the archetype of the universal genius. His influence on art is undeniable. Each of his works is not just a painting, but a philosophical manifesto. The Mona Lisa, perhaps the most famous painting in history, continues to spark debates, theories, and inspire generations. The mysterious smile, the soft sfumato shading, the compositional harmony, all have become canonical. In cinema and animation, the image of Leonardo has been repeatedly reinterpreted. He appears as a wise mentor, inventor, and even an eccentric magician. One of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles bears his name, and in the film, The Age of Adeline, he is mentioned as a theorist of immortality. In the Assassin's Creed video game series, he is portrayed as the protagonist's friend and an engineer anarchist. In Marvel Comics, he is a member of an ancient secret brotherhood. He is quoted in rock and pop culture, featured on album covers and multimedia. The image of Da Vinci has become a meme, a hero of ads and comics. His face a recognizable symbol of the Renaissance era. Leonardo's legacy is scattered worldwide. Italy alone has more than 60 museums connected to his life and works. In Milan, at the Ambrosiana National Library, the Codex Atlanticus is kept, a massive collection of his drawings and notes covering nearly all topics, from mechanics to paleontology. In Windsor, England, there is the most extensive collection of his anatomical drawings. In Seattle, exhibitions of reconstructions of his inventions are held. At the Louvre, thousands queue daily to see the Mona Lisa. Vinci, his hometown, has become a pilgrimage site where a museum operates with full-scale models of his machines. Documentaries by BBC, History Channel, and National Geographic regularly focus on his figure. In 2019, marking the 500th anniversary of his death, large-scale exhibitions took place in London, Paris, and Rome. For the first time, all his anatomical sketches were displayed and dozens of inventions reconstructed. Leonardo is a symbol of interdisciplinarity. His approach to knowledge was strikingly modern. The human body is a machine. Art is a way to understand nature. Mathematics is the language of the universe. He was convinced that all sciences are interconnected, and that only through their unification can truth be understood. In the 21st century, his ideas are adapted in STEAM education: science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics. The principle of learning through observation and experiment has become a cornerstone of the scientific method. Systems engineers, architects, urban planners, and even biologists cite Da Vinci as a source of inspiration. Scientists at MIT have used his aerodynamic concepts in developing drones. At Google, his thinking is considered in the context of creative problem solving. Harvard and Stanford universities offer courses dedicated to Leonardo as a visionary of the future. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code sparked millions of people's interest in Leonardo's figure, but filled it with mysticism and fiction. According to the book, Da Vinci was a member of the Priory of Sion, encoding the secret of the Holy Grail in his paintings. However, no documents confirm these fantasies. Leonardo indeed used mirror writing, but it was most likely related to his left-handedness and desire to protect his ideas. He hid manuscripts not because of fear of the Inquisition, but to prevent intellectual theft. He was far ahead of his contemporaries. However, myths are important as a symptom. Leonardo remains a mystery. His diaries are still not fully deciphered. His personal life is full of secrets, including questions about his sexuality, faith, and relationships with students. He said, "How beautiful life is in its structure, and how unimaginable its depth," as if leaving us a challenge to continue decoding. Today, he is a symbol not just of a great past, but of endless horizons that the human mind opens. Leonardo da Vinci left behind no completed treatises. Many of his paintings remained unfinished, and even his grand engineering projects stayed on paper. He was not a finished scientist, nor did he fit neatly into the roles of artist, philosopher, or architect. He was an eternal student. "Learning never exhausts the mind. It only ignites it," he wrote. This inner fire, the drive for knowledge, the thirst to observe and understand, made Leonardo special. He did not seek answers for fame. He sought them for the questions themselves. His incompleteness was not a weakness, but a reflection of his endless striving for comprehension. His life was not a journey from point A to point B, but a spiral revolving around an infinite why. He was not afraid to try, to fail, to redo. His greatness lies in doubt, in the desire to see what is hidden. He wrote, "Observation is the father of knowledge," and he himself became the embodiment of this idea. What would Leonardo say to those living in the 21st century, in a world of neural networks, quantum computers, and space missions? His message, encoded in his works, is clear. Think, feel, explore. He believed the human mind is a tool for understanding nature, but he also knew that without feeling, without empathy and beauty, science becomes empty. He asserted, "Those who love practice without knowledge are like a sailor who sails without a map and compass." And today, when technology advances faster than morality, it is more important than ever to remember this balance. He taught us to see beauty in shadow and geometry, to hear music in the structure of a leaf, to feel the mystery behind every movement of the universe. He invited us not just to look, but to see, not just to do, but to understand. We live in an era where the boundaries between science and art are blurred, just as Leonardo imagined. Artificial intelligence creates paintings. Bioengineers recreate organs. Architects design cities inspired by natural forms. Wherever the synthesis of sciences happens, wherever intuition is valued as much as logic, the spirit of Leonardo lives. He would be fascinated by machine learning as a form of observation. He would study DNA as he once studied blood vessels. He would draft metaverses and design algorithms. His notebooks might become the UX design of a new consciousness. That is why he is our contemporary. He was a Renaissance man. He is a man of the future. He said, "Once you have soared into the sky, you will forever look at the earth with the eyes of the sky." We are already rising. We just need to remember who first looked up. Imagine, evening, the French estate of Clos-Lucé, May 2nd, 1519. In a room filled with the soft glow of candlelight and the rustle of parchment, an old man with delicate hands and a gaze fixed on the unknown speaks his final words. He who tried to unravel the flow of blood, the flight of a bird, the smile of a woman, the course of a river, now himself departs into eternity. Symbolically, he was called not just Leonardo, but Da Vinci, from the world, from nature, from the heart of an era. He entered it to understand and left behind mysteries we still strive to solve. He was a man. He became an image of the flight of thought, the beauty of search, the power of curiosity. He became part of the universe he spent his life trying to understand. And perhaps there is no more fitting symbol of his spirit than the sketch from his notebook, the drawing of the Vitruvian Man. It is not merely perfect proportions. It is a symbol of the ideal union of art and science, man and cosmos. Today, millions see this image in textbooks, posters, museums, and films. It has become an archetype, a reminder of what a person can be if they dare to unite logic and imagination. Da Vinci showed us there are no limits. There is only what remains undiscovered. His legacy is an invitation to a journey of knowledge that, like the universe itself, has no end. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Leonardo da Vinci. If you enjoyed the story, please give it a like. It will help others discover this amazing world too. And be sure to write in the comments which fact from Leonardo's biography surprised you the most. I'm really looking forward to reading your thoughts and sharing more stories with you. Good night, and until we meet again, under the stars of time.